to our event, Geospatial Careers, Growth, Pathways, and In-Demand Opportunities, also known as our GIST and Geodesign Alumni Panel, which is what I have simply been referring to it, which is why I forgot our wonderful title that collaboratively came up with. So this is one of the many events that our clusters and communities are putting together. And so this is obviously collaboration with our GIST cluster and our Geodesign cluster, since, as students might have guessed, there's a lot of overlap. And as one of our panelists can attest, sometimes we have students and one of our guests go from our undergrad to our graduate programs. So I would like to just let the faculty do a quick intro of who have organized, and then we'll do a round robin of intros of our panelists, and then we'll get into some questions for the panelists. How's that sound? Perfect. All right, so I'm Laura Loyola. Most of you know me, have had me in a class or seen me around otherwise. So I am now co-leading the GIST cluster with Dr. Jennifer Swift.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. It's wonderful to see everybody. I'm not actually moderating the mechanics, but I am going to watch the chat. And for anybody online that doesn't know me, I teach in a class in the geodesign. I teach some of the master's classes, and I teach PhD classes, mostly in spatial computing areas. That's it.
We'll just keep the faculty going. My name is Bita Minaris. Some of you know me, most of you don't. I'm a relatively newer face, but I teach 201 for the geodesign students and 301 for a lot of other students. And we have a lot, obviously, go from geodesign into the graduate program. So happy to be part of it, to get to know a little bit more what's going on.
Hello, Guoping Huang. I'm the co-lead of the geodesign cluster, and I've been teaching most courses in geodesign. I also teach spatial data acquisition, data visualization, and other courses.
All right, so I'll turn it over to our panelists. Do you want to go first? And then or should we go this way?
Sure.
All right, so we're gonna go with our in-person, and then we'll say Brian, then Rich, because that's how I see you on our screen. Do a quick intro, and then we'll have we have some prepared questions. But as Dr. Swift said in the chat, if you have any questions, those online or in the room, feel free to also type them in the chat, or ask them here. Go ahead, Julia.
Yeah, hi, I'm Julia Fruithandler. I graduated from geodesign undergraduate degree in 2019. And I currently am a computational designer for Arcadis, which was formerly a smaller architecture company called IBI Group, but Arcadis is a large multinational engineering firm, kind of runs the gambit, but we my team specifically operates within what's called architecture and urbanism department. So we work specifically on architecture and urbanism. And I do computational design. I can kind of fill in maybe later more about what it is, but effectively it's like 3D models and algorithms for design thinking. Yeah. And so yeah, and I before that I worked at LADOT as a GIS analyst for a year. So
great. All right, Brian.
Hey, yes. My name is Brian Everett. I was a 2019 GIST master's degree student, customization and programming track. I'm currently serving as the chief of geospatial engineering at the New Orleans District Corps of Engineers. Spent about 15 years with them. But I've been about the last 3 years in this role. But within the New Orleans district, we oversee the CAD and GIS and engineering application development there. So overseeing any of the computer-aided design programs that the engineers use, any programming customization that goes on with our BIM and CAD designs. Of course, any of our GIS analysis, and then of course any application engineering development. We do a lot of work with applications developed on Oracle, Esri, you name it, any of those stacks. So we're heavily involved within New Orleans, up the Mississippi Valley, and then nationwide, and sometimes internationally with the things that we support.
So been busy is what you're saying.
Yeah. Yes, very busy.
All right, Rich, go ahead with an intro.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rich. I graduated with a geodesign degree in 2018 and was one of the guinea pigs to go straight from that program into the GIST program. The track that I had was kind of made up on the fly with all the things that I am interested in. So there was a huge focus on civic data. I've been with the City of Los Angeles for 6 years as a GIS specialist. And currently I'm placed with LA Sanitation, and I have a lot of different projects under my belt. But generally I focus on making sure the city is running efficiently and very equitably with where all the service is happening, making sure that lower income or more diverse sections of the city are getting the same quality of service as everywhere else.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna turn it over.
Thank you very much. Well, then I am gonna get started by asking Brian a question. And what I think many of us are interested to know about is thinking back on your entire academic journey, were there any specific experiences that you had, be they extracurriculars or certain coursework or internships that you felt really helped you navigate the transition from, being a student to being in your professional life?
Yeah, I mean, there's I would say a lot of the hands-on type labs and things, and uh, portions of different courses throughout time, and through my undergraduate and through my graduate degree at USC, it was really helped me. I'm more of kind of a hands-on kind of approach person when I got into the labs and being able to do things like that. It really helped me put things to work. I would also say the different project experiences, especially that USC allowed me to get through multiple different classes, whether it was the Web GIS class or the programming course, and using those basically whole class long type projects that where you were working and things like that, and maybe collaborating with your fellow students on different projects, was very instrumental in being able to understand how to apply what I was learning. So, the just one-on-one and doing schoolwork and classwork and listening to the lectures and things like that, but the ability to work and apply that knowledge was very instrumental into what in my career so far to this point.
Nice. Always happy to hear that the labs are useful and preparing for future work. Rich, I'm gonna kind of ask you the same question, or to give you a little bit of a different spin on it. When you're thinking back on those experiences that you've had, also, especially for you since you went from the undergrad to a grad program, do you have any experiences that stand out, and also any kind of tips for freshmen and sophomores on how to really prepare themselves to, maximize their time, maximize their experience at USC to be set up for success?
Sure. I started out as a freshman as a civil engineer, and then I transferred into geodesign as a sophomore. So I really spent that whole first year for sophomore year kind of figuring out, okay, I originally wanted to be an engineer because I wanted to make cities better for people, but you don't have to be a civil engineer to do that. Geodesign really gave me the tools to do that in a different manner. So once I kind of had a better understanding of this new program that I was in, and I had the academics kind of under control, I wanted more real life experiences. And the great thing about Dornsife is there's a lot of research opportunities. Through Dornsife, I was able to do a summer at NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory, working on landfill compaction rates due to earthquakes with unmanned aerial vehicles. And throughout the school year, I also had 2 research projects under Bo McDonald, and those were both partnerships with the city. So even though I didn't get a city job until after graduating, I still had all those city connections and people that I had met through the research opportunities at USC. So in that situation, it's kind of like a Trojan family where it is really connecting you with all the people that you know in order to get those opportunities. And the research with Bo, I mean, we got first prize in the undergraduate research seminar. We had a lot of great opportunities to go to the city and present our work. So that gave me the real life experience as an undergrad to kind of just jump right into the workforce and already have those types of experiences under my belt.
Nice, awesome.
Wait, can I ask, who are you guys? Like, are you undergraduate students? Yeah, okay,
Thanks.
geodesign mostly? Yeah.
geodesign, but then
Spatial data science.
It's
Spatial
separate,
data
it's a separate
science.
major now.
It's a
His
master.
graduate degree, master's degree,
Understood.
and then now in our GIST program.
Geodesign to GIST, yeah.
Okay.
We had 30 people sign up. There was about 10 more online.
Yeah, we should have the students to
Yeah.
tell us your background as well.
I know Diego.
Online, if you just want to like throw in the chat real quick what your
Yeah, put it in the chat,
Yeah.
what's your.
And Nicole,
Okay.
Anna, I
Anna
see
is,
you guys, you're
geodesign.
hiding.
Nicole, geodesign.
Well, while they do that, shall we keep it going?
Yeah, sorry, no, I was just
No.
wondering, that's like the target audience
question.
was,
You're
yeah.
the next one up, actually, so
Yeah.
that works out very well.
Yes.
I did want to give you a second if there's anything you want to add, but I have a different question for you.
Okay.
Do you want anything to?
No, I had like a slightly different experience because I like thought I was gonna do urban planning and then switched it. So like they come from a more technical background than I do, so it's slightly different, but I wrote the research thing that Rich did. We did research together and I did research every semester that I was at USC, and I think that was like probably the best thing I did. So yeah, and
Well, then this question's perfect for you.
Okay.
So a lot of times geodesign students say, I come from an interdisciplinary program. I am
Yeah.
partly urban design, I'm partly urban planning, partly architecture, partly spatial science. How am I gonna compete in the job market with someone who's, you know, full architecture, full urban planning? And it feels like there's a little bit of, you know, not anxiety, but a little, how is this gonna work? So curious to know, how did you position your degree to, you know, show its strength?
yeah, that's such a good question, and like honestly, something I still struggle with 5 years out. Like I'll just be super honest that like that is a challenge, and I think the answer that you guys don't want to hear is like you're not going to compete with an actual architect, like someone who graduates with a BArch. Like, yeah, if you're going after an architecture position like that, yeah, like you're not going to do that. But like, I think the advantage is, first of all, you can select from like whatever you want, which I think is a really unique situation where you can position yourself like depending on like what kind of job you're going after, you can kind of angle your story around that because you have different experience to draw from. I think where I have really thrived in my professional career and the advantage that I have above other people, not like, you know what I mean? Is that like, yeah, no, it's something that like that geodesign gave me is the ability to speak across different languages. It's like the ability to be like, yeah, I can sit in a room with a bunch of urban planners and talk shop with them, but I can also do that with architects. And like, yeah, I'm not doing like drafting with the architects, but I can understand what they're talking about. I can understand what the civil engineers are talking about and being able to be like, okay, these people need this thing, these people need this other thing. Like, how can I sit in a room with a bunch of experts and then build a model around their expertise and like pull from them the information that I need to get to build my model? Because oftentimes, so like my expert, like to back up a little bit, is like I'm doing a lot of 3D modeling, but I'm not like the expert on the subject matter. So at any point in time, like we're kind of plugging into a different team. So 1 minute I'm working on a comprehensive plan, and then the next project I'm working on like garbage truck routing, and then the minute like randomly lucrative industry. Yes, we have talked at length about this. And then sometimes like we're doing like facades and cantilevers, like, you know, so we're doing like different things, and like I'm not an expert at any of those things, but I'm able to sit in a room and talk with them about it because I have this like breadth of experience, and then I can go back and like, yeah, like kind of ask the right questions and navigate. And I guess the long story short is like communication and being able to articulate across different fields. Yeah.
I do want to add to that,
Yes.
that especially with public jobs, a lot of times even they have like the AI filters for job applications. Those AI things, or just people who don't really care, will see geodesign and they won't think to explore what that is. So it helps to have your foot in the door and have something there. I have other friends from the geodesign program who, you know, they were looking for a specifically GIS major, and they saw we had a geodesign major. They pushed their application to the side, even though they were so qualified. So it is important, especially when you're applying to private jobs as well, just having that conversation so that they are aware what your skills and what you bring to the table are.
Yeah, that's actually such a good point. That's like slightly tangential. It's like put your coursework in your resume because people don't know what geodesign is. Like if you want to really harp on like one particular, because you can choose your angle, like, okay, I did geodesign and I really want to go into like more planning, like put the coursework that related to urban planning that you've done in your resume, because then you, like, as I'm going through resumes, I see that and I'm like, oh, okay, like that degree is just like called something different and they have relevant experience. That's awesome.
Yes, I would 100% back that up of all the resumes and things. I've hired 4 people just the last year, and I would say, and out of hundreds of resumes and things that I've looked at, I know that we teach people to build a 1-pager resume of what you can hand somebody at a career fair, but always follow that up, with something that's a little bit more detailed of where, you're actually showing what you like your coursework, like she said, things like that, because that makes a huge difference in being able to differentiate. Now, I may still call that person, talk to them, but if I have 200 resumes and I'm going through and highlighting things that catch my eye and things like that. So, if I pick up somebody, it's like, oh, this person, I'm looking specific for geodesign or Python scripting or things like that. Okay, did you take this? Do you understand this? Especially for recent graduates of things that people are coming out.
Totally. Yeah. Also, I'm hiring right now. So I've been I'll put that out there first. And then, but I have quite literally gone through over 1,000 resumes. So this is like something just while we're on the topic, and it's like top of mind. If you're going into a design profession, and some of you are like spatial data science, that's a different thing. But if you're going into a design profession, urban planning, architecture, whatever, your resume needs to be well designed. Like that is like a very big thing for me. It's like, if you're like on a white page in Word with like absolutely no thought to the design, left, like next, like because I have 1,000 resumes to look at, and I want to see that you are proficient in Adobe, first of all, and second of all, that you have like put thought into your like aesthetic, because you're going to then enter a design profession. Like, you need to have thought it through. Obviously, it's a different story if you're like just in doing data science, like that. I can't speak to that, and like maybe you guys can, but just while we're on the topic, it's something that I've noticed, and I think that sticks out to me as I'm looking at thousands.
Is that the same for you, Brian? Does design
I think it's different for that.
The organization and how clear things are.
Yeah,
I would say definitely an organized page. I can say I've gotten resumes where, it may be 1 bullet point and then, or 3 bullet points of like, it almost reads like kind of like an outline, and there's nothing. It's not so much of the design into it to me as like the organizational structure. I've gotten some that I feel like most of the USC resumes I've seen are good and organized, but maybe some from others is like, this person must have just Googled how to write a resume, and it got picked something kind of random off of the internet, and so it does kind of matter in how you organize things, because sometimes it comes across as lazy, or you just threw this together real quick to put it in there. So definitely organization makes a difference in how you present yourself to your future employer.
Okay, that's a good point. To keep on with this theme of resumes right now.
Yeah, sorry, I sidetracked the
No, it's okay. It's
We
really
have a
useful.
question online about it, so.
Did you, Taylor, thank you for saying this before you had to drop out of the program, of the meeting. Bad choice of words there. But she's asking this question that when we're having our coursework on our resume, how should we reword or rename courses so that we don't explicitly say what was taught? So it's not just, architecture 203 is built environment. How do we kind of go about positioning these classes? Is it just a name? Is it reworded?
Or is it projects that they have completed within the course that's also useful?
Yeah.
What
Because we do sometimes ask to highlight projects.
we have a way of doing that, of recommending people talk about their projects that they've done in coursework.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, I think
I would lean more towards the project-based things, because you can only describe so much with the course name. So by talking about a project that I worked on installation of rain barrels to see how that would impact the city, and you talk more about that and the steps that were taken in it. So from my perspective, I would at least go project-based, but I'm from the city of LA. You want a boring and well-structured resume, get you in the door that way. So it's another different approach.
That's an important distinction. I work for an architecture firm, like that's very different than working for the city of Los Angeles, so I won't do that.
Yeah. So you would also, they'll recommend probably highlighting project as opposed to like a design course, like the name of the course, or?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I don't see a lot of like fresh out of college resumes, so it's hard for me to say.
I feel like it could also work its way into the cover letter if there is one that required for the job, because your resume, you don't want to double list things. So you can be like, I have these skills that directly relate to the job, and that can be talked about in the cover letter.
If you have a portfolio, that's a really amazing opportunity to put a blurb about the coursework or this tee up for the project in the portfolio, like that would be a good option. I've also seen like resume and then with the degree and like a little asterisk, and then the second page is like relevant coursework that like then after the first page of the resume, which is typical, then the second page is more like detailed projects to note from relevant courses. Like that's also been interesting.
Interesting structure. Sure, you have something for,
So just similar to what we're talking about, I'm wondering if there's a specific program or something you're in and that it has a very specific name, like for example, Hayes Barnard Fellowship. Do you think it would make sense to put the specific name that people might not be familiar with for credibility reasons, or should you convert it into something that's more general and understandable, like Sustainability Fellowship?
No, I would use the name because I'm gonna look it up. Yeah.
People will Google it.
Yeah, we'll look it up if it's something like that. I'll say continuing on like the talking about what I typically like to see is, relevant coursework, like the courses, and then relevant projects, especially if you're a student. Now, if you have experience working, that's where you'd expect more of the working detail and how, and it's not necessarily things you've done, but things that are relevant to the job you're applying to. So also remember that is that if you are applying to more of a geodesign job or a GIS programming job, make sure you list, those specific projects and things that would be relevant, to those to that type of work that you're applying to.
Yeah, it's also really job dependent too, right? Like it depends, like if I'm looking for someone just to code, I'm just going right to their skills section and then I'm moving on, so it just depends what the job is asking for too.
Yeah, definitely don't have a one size fits all resume. That's definitely make sure you rewrite your resume for whatever job that you're applying to.
Tell them that multiple resumes is very important. Yeah,
it does.
We can move on. Sorry.
Yeah, especially sounds applicable to how you're positioning geodesign, because you're going to go more GIS, more architecture, position it how you need it. But kind of continuing on with this idea of shifting into the job market and how to apply for jobs. I'm curious what role having a mentor or even finding a mentor played for any of you. Was it helpful? How did you cultivate that relationship? Did you have one? Julie, if you have an answer, I'd like to go first. If not, over. It's kind of open to all.
Yeah, I did sort of. Yeah. In college, I'm trying to think. So I worked for the city in the student professional workers, like a part-time year-long program. And my boss there was like a really incredible advocate for me. And I stayed in touch with her. I'm trying to think, did I have a mentor? I mean, like you guys all, like Darren was so helpful. Like I think cultivating relationships with your professors, even if it's not like a formal mentor-mentee relationship, was like incredibly helpful. And like, again, research because I built that relationship like with Bo in a kind of like more casual outside of the classroom experience. And so she was very like, I don't think I had the formal mentor relationship, but like I built relationships with all of you throughout. I think that's honestly the best thing about geodesign is that it's like a small program. So like we all got to know each other. And then at my current job, like my boss kind of wears two hats as like both my boss. I've worked with him for 5 years. So I think part of it is just time and that we've worked together a long time. But yeah, like it's gotten to the point where he's like, it's not a relationship where he's like, you have to stay here and do all these things. And how are you going to progress within my team? It's very much like, how can I help you grow as a young professional? And like, that's been a huge blessing. I think like, I wish I had a hard and fast answer, but I honestly think it's just finding someone you mesh with. Like I just finding like building a rapport, finding interest outside of work that you like relate to someone on, and like building off that. We're both like super into biking and like went on, you know what I mean? Like, and so therefore like we've been able to build a relationship that kind of adds dimension, I think. I don't have a good answer. You guys honestly.
To be fair, it's rare, I think you say, I'm now your mentor. It's more kind of a.
Organic, yeah,
organic,
yeah. Yeah, and also like, and we talk about this in the hiring process too, it's like, just find someone where the conversation flows and keep going with it, you know, like so much of working in the real world is just connecting with people and like good dynamics between each other.
Brian, I'll turn to you.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like she said, communicating professors, Dr. Swift, you and I communicated a lot, during my time there, and had that kind of relationship where, where I could ask questions and things like that. When I first started out in this business 15 years ago, and really kind of took hold of the GIS manager of where I was working at the time, and asked questions and took part in the community practices. That's where I'm traveling this week to have a community of practice meeting in our region, and having those relationships and building that network there of other people in your organization that may have been there longer than you. Kind of know when I became the chief of Geospatial, I knew one of the other chiefs of Geospatial in the Corps of Engineers, and he have known each other for about 15 years, and he's been a supervisor about that same amount of time, and so I would, heavily rely on him. I still talk to him maybe once a week. We live in, he lives in Illinois, I live in Louisiana, but we're constantly communicating and talking with each other and having that relationship there where he helps me. Within the Corps, we also have an official mentorship program too. So, there's that opportunity where people can sign up and people can be mentors or mentees. I definitely, recommend that. But biggest thing is for the students is just, your professors are there to help you. So just remember that, build relationships with your professors, and that they want to see you succeed. So, and same thing with alumni, we want to see you guys succeed too. So, I can share my email, those kind of things, if people have questions, you're always welcome to reach out. I'm always willing to try to help build, our community of practice in geospatial.
That's perfect, Brian. We didn't mean for that to be a way to rope you in, but we're so glad that's the direction it went in.
Right, I was gonna say, that leads into the next question quite nicely, and I really appreciate that you brought up community of practice, because we've had a lot of students always asking, like, how, and for you guys, how did you go about starting to network and build your network, or what was sort of the most effective way for you to kind of get your name out there? So I know we've had sort of foot in door. Yeah. Maybe Rich, if you have.
Sure. I think that part of it is also, it's all your classmates that you make, not to pivot away from the research into professors, but more context to that is senior year geodesign. I was convinced that I was still going to do the GIST masters, but I was going to go work for NGA as a geospatial agent, doing military mapping and things. Ultimately, I did not want to work for the current administration. So by March of senior year, I was scrambling and was like, what am I going to do for a job? Someone who I did research with, Izzy, the year previously, she had then been hired by LA, at the time, Mayor Garcetti's data team. And so I submitted an application. She's like, oh, I worked with Rich. He's great. He's with SSI, same program. So it was someone on the inside who was then able to vouch for me and then get me in as a student employee. And then, that was what she was able to do for me. And then just through my own works, from student worker to project assistant to project coordinator to finally GIS specialist to the GIS person for my whole division. So it's about making those kinds of jumps. And then more on the networking side, there's the USC Geospatial Summit, there's the Esri conference, there's all of the events that Esri has. I do really support going to those events. I think it's a great way to meet other people. I've been an Esri UC assistant twice. And so that was fantastic because I got to meet a lot of people around my age from all over the country, all over the world even, with GIS jobs. And that multiplied my network immensely. The USC network, it's great. But then to have conference friends, that's something else that's just so great because you see them every year. If they visit your city, you can stay with them. They see you, you get lunch. So those conferences and networking opportunities are great.
We have the same thing among the faculty, only it goes decades. We still see the same people 10 years later.
I haven't seen Natalie Milstein, and do you remember her?
Oh my gosh,
It's
yeah.
so long, and like she has like, so yes, like I'm not gonna pretend like my job is like perfect, so I was all like, maybe interested in leaving, and I reached out to her like out of the blue, and she was like, oh my god, of course, like honestly, church and family is corny, but it's like very true.
I talked to her for an hour last week.
Yeah.
Your networking is probably a little bit of a different angle too.
I network a lot
Just
within
like
my company because we are like kind of operate as a sub consultancy. So we're out there like vying for work from other teams as like being like, let us be a value add onto your project and helping them. And so I do a lot of relationship building within my company and also in like we work in the private sector. For those of you who don't know, basically the way work gets procured is that like the government puts out what's called a request for proposal or a request for qualification, and then and that can be like municipal, state level, whatever, and then private companies respond to that and the best bid wins. But it's also a lot about building relationships like with the client, and you all like each other and so forth. Yeah, I think part of it, this is like such a cop-out answer, but is like just being like a friendly, nice person and like not, like listening to what other people have to say.
That takes effort.
It does, yeah.
Answer. I mean, it's the truth.
Yeah. And also being an advocate for yourself. Like I think and that's also like on the mentor note, like I think I thought when I first graduated that someone was gonna be like, hi, I'm gonna be your mentor. Like let's, and that's just not how things work. You have to work. And I have spent a lot of time being like, hey, I'm really interested in this thing. Like, would you mind if I like shadowed you for a little bit? Or if I like, could you give me like a project that you've worked on and maybe I can try to like replicate it and learn from you or something like that. And people are generally like pretty willing to do that, especially if you're offering to take work off their plate. And I think, I don't know, I honestly like just insert myself in a lot of conversations where people are talking about these things and I'm like, my product can help you actually. Like there's a value here and like, let me show you. The power of showing is really important. Here's videos of things that I've done and like, this is how it could change. Yeah. And like, I think I'm having like a pointed question when you do go to network, like instead of just being like, hi, but instead saying like, I've like, it's so interesting that you work for the city of LA Department of Sanitation. Like I've been thinking about this problem in my life. Like, what can you tell me about XYZ? Like having like an explicit reason to talk to them also like helps build authenticity, I think. I don't know.
Great, thank you.
We're so happy to hear that conferences matter this much.
Yeah.
Just as a reminder that November 12th and 14th is a conferences 101 workshop open to all. So just to plug that in right
Also, Esri user conference, I think you can go one day free,
Yes.
like with a student
For
pass.
students,
Go the
yeah.
day of the party. Because our big party is
Yes.
always Tuesday night.
Or the first day with the planning session.
Yeah, so
Or the
at
first
least you
day with
get
the
one
speakers,
day. If you can't stay more than one day.
Yeah, the Esri user conference is great. Everyone should go at least once in their career for sure.
Yeah.
If you go as a student assistant, they pay for everything. So that's also a huge plus.
Yes, they are accepting those applications.
Yeah, conferences are great. Also I feel the need to say this in this day and age, like being in person really matters. I like, and I'll say that to you all, like coming in person, like
not to those behind.
yeah, but like screw you guys. But like it honestly does make a difference.
Like, oh man,
I like going into I have a hybrid work schedule and like I was fully work from home during COVID, and the act of being face to face with someone makes such a world of difference. I have such a larger network within my company just because like I would never in a million years talk to like the water engineering department, but like I sit next to them in the office. And so like now I talk to them all the time and I have like an understanding of water engineering, and like maybe it hasn't led to anything right now, but eventually it could, you know, so like, I think just like, yeah, connecting with people face to face just is worth saying in this age, like, I think it's important for young people.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that for sure. You know, we work in a hybrid work environment in our office, you know, and telework is nice, remote work is nice, but you do have those more spontaneous conversations with people that ended up leading to relationships, and from the relationships end up building to, you know, could be work for you, could put yourself out there. I mean, she's right about, you know, definitely having to be willing to put yourself out there. I know not necessarily all personalities are that way. I know some people are more introverted, but you have to find a way, maybe for introverted, to put yourself out there, whether it might be a website or things like that that you might design. You know, I've even gotten things from people, you know, where they'll build like a story map to tell me about themselves, you know, kind of thing, as an addendum to like their resume or something, or build a website that tells you all about themselves and links to their GitHub sites and things. But yeah, second on the conferences, definitely attend conferences as much as you can. That's how I got to really know somebody. I mean, I found out about my job through job fairs. I think job fairs is another thing to definitely hit up as much as you can. You know, go prepared, go out and meet these people that are doing hiring and things like that, and get conversations. You may find an area that you might not have known about per se if you go to these job fairs. I know we send out recruiters all over the country to job fairs. Also, you know, like I said, keep those relationships with your professors, because I'll always reach out and canvas universities and things like that to say, hey, who do you have that's, you know, graduating pretty soon, and this is what I'm looking for. You know, we just recently hired somebody from USC that had those skills, and you know, he's been working out really great, and I'm happy about that. So you know, definitely, you know, put yourself out there, like she was saying, and definitely, you know, the party at Roy's, you know, I try to make it out there every few years. I used to go a lot more when I was not a supervisor, but try to let everybody try to let everybody else go to have the fun, you know. But definitely, there's so much that you can learn from those groups. Your organizations, like URISA, you know, we have which is now the Geospatial Professional Network. But you know, we have a very active group in New Orleans, and we meet once a month for Mappy hours. And it's been great for me as far as like being in New Orleans the last 3 years to get to know those people. And as a student, you know, there's nothing for you saying you can't join those organizations and show up, because you never know where we're always looking for people. When I talk to the city of New Orleans, or you know, one of the other contracting organizations in New Orleans, or sewer water board, whoever it might be, we're always actively recruiting. So if you show up there, you never know when they might ask you for a resume or send them something. So definitely stay active in organizations like that.
I think we have a quick question in the
Yeah, I
room.
had
and then
a
we'll
question.
keep
It was
going.
back when we were talking about conventions. I was gonna ask, because DataCon LA is no longer at USC, it's at Cal State Long Beach. But I was just gonna ask if there's still like a student pass or some kind of discount you could get from being a student.
I'm not
for
sure, but
DataCon.
we can look in that.
But I could also just look it up.
I don't know.
Okay, you guys, the people that came later, can you introduce yourselves to the?
Yeah, sorry, my name is Isaac, sophomore, geodesign major.
Well, also the students that also came earlier too.
We didn't get names, we
Yeah.
didn't get names, we just got we just got degrees.
Yeah. Yeah, just name and degree if you're comfortable with that.
Yeah, I'm Alex. I come from spatial data science major, and I'm the second year master student in SSI.
I'm Jay. I'm a global geodesign second year.
Hi everyone, I'm Jake. I'm a geodesign undergrad with a master's in GIST.
I'm Amber. I just graduated the global geodesign major and I'm in the GIST masters.
I'm Shivi. I'm a third year global geodesign major.
Hi, I'm Sora. I'm a third year studying geodesign.
And then we have a variety of geodesign and mostly just online, I think.
Yeah, does anybody online wanna say hi?
I know you all typed in your.
You can all, yeah, you all typed in. Do you wanna, anybody wanna say hi, turn on your camera?
If not, we do have a couple more questions, and then we'll, you know, if you have additional questions, we can. Nobody's popping in. Okay,
Okay, I didn't see, if
yeah.
you want to just text
Just
me
let
in the
us know.
chat.
All right, let's see here, where were we? Because you keep covering all the questions before we get there. I'm like, okay.
Moving on to professional life.
Because I know, well, one of the questions that we had students ask about a lot is, and which you started to touch on in terms of your networking and saying, hey, I'm really interested in this thing. I really want to learn more about this aspect of what we're doing. And, you know, to the question of, when you're starting out in different parts of your career, how is it that you have gone about to expand your skills as you're growing in your career? This can be for any and all, yeah.
I'll take that one. Especially, so with the city of LA, we're kind of locked into an Esri enterprise agreement. So we have that entire army at our disposal, basically. And so we can get free trainings whenever, we can sign up for trainings, they're covered by work. They want us to be a really well-developed workforce, and there's funding set to the side just so we can retain our knowledge, continue learning. It is the city, so it's a little bit slower sometimes on some things, but those avenues are there to advance your degree and advance your own knowledge. I mean, Esri, GIS itself is changing so fast that there's no way to stay on top of everything. And so you do have to keep your finger on the pulse, whether that's by attending the Esri user conferences or just being aware of what other cities are doing. The city of LA, we're going to go through a change to the MyLA system soon. So we've been looking at what other cities offer, and that's been really helpful. And I've been talking to other GIS specialists from other cities, so we can kind of just form a network and better tackle the problems together.
Good resource to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
You wanted to add more.
Yeah, I would just say I kind of agree with that. You know, that we're also in ELA folks with Esri, so we do have the free trainings there. You know, there's a lot of other open source things out there and there's so much online. We live in a great age of information where you can learn just about anything you want, as long as you know, set your time aside and make sure that you're say that you're going to commit to it, and you know, have that initiative to get out there and train yourself. We also do technical exchanges on a routine basis once a month within our divisional group. So we also do those like technical exchanges. Like I said, we encourage the conferences that anytime there's workshops, we try to work with any software vendors we can if we can arrange for in-person training or web training, you know. So, you know, just look for those kind of opportunities throughout your career to, you know, I may have been working for 15 years, but there's always something new I'm learning. I think last week I've spent most of my week like on YouTube looking at digital twinning. So, you know, that's something that we're looking at and getting into. So there's always opportunities, no matter where you are in your career, to learn something new. And don't ever forget that. You know, I see that very often in people that have had, you know, 30 years, and you know, there's always still something new to learn. I have employees that have 20 to 30 years and they're still trying to learn web GIS and things like that. So there's always something new to learn. Don't put yourself in a rut of when you graduate thinking you're done, because that's when you're just getting started. You know,
On that note, so I think there's kind of like a second layer to this conversation, which is that once you enter the working world, everything is about the bottom line, especially in the private sector. So people are like, well, sure, you can go learn something on your own, like great, but like why? But like you have to reach 85% billability, you know. So like you've got 15% of your hours to dedicate to learning or doing admin or doing your timesheet, whatever. Like there's very limited time. So I think the broader, like there's also like everyone here is like, I think everyone who's smart enough to be here is smart enough to like want to continue to learn and grow outside of like after graduation. But I think there's also like a business case that has to be made with whoever your employer ends up being, that like if I am not like if I am not learning, then you are only paying for my past experience, and like there's no business development. Like we're not going to continue to have a competitive advantage unless we continue to build our skills and keep up with the times. So I also think like having that in addition to whatever you want to learn and carving out time, but also like making a case to your employer that like that is worth the investment of B&D time.
Excellent point.
So, and again, like I'm coming from a totally different angle than government contracts, right? And that's taxpayer money, it's a different thing. So yeah, so I think being able to have a skill you want to learn and making a business case for it and it, like showing like how it's going to be valuable is also like a reality of working, in the real world.
I think that's really solid advice because oftentimes it's part of what you were saying earlier of like being able to stand up for yourself and say, this is what I want, or this is how I want to grow, and here's why, and learning and growing to be able to do that, because you don't get handed anything out there. And so being able to have that ability to say, hey, here's how I'm gonna help grow the company, especially those that want to go into the private sector. That's really solid advice.
Also, and also it's like totally like scary and like totally nebulous to be like, like I don't know what's out, like it's hard to say like I'm gonna do this thing and it's gonna grow the company, and like to be fresh out of college saying that is like so daunting. But I think that, and so like maybe that advice of like making a business case is like a little premature if you're fresh out of college, but also being like
It ties into mentors.
Yeah.
People have done stuff before you.
Finding opportunity, totally, like expanding, making the case that like I'm a young grad and I'm trying to understand what there is out there, and like that ultimately has long-term impacts for the company. And it's kind of, I don't know. It's just a reality of working, for companies, for profit companies.
We had a couple more people come in.
That's me. Hi, I'm Anna. I'm an undergraduate in geodesign.
And Jordan?
He typed online. I saw him type.
Hi, Jordan.
Like, I'm a geo student. Okay. Are there kind of have one?
Well, just a semi-tangent, hopefully not too controversial of a question, given the role Esri plays for many of your employers. But I'm curious, and our appreciation for their services. But I'm curious how often you have, how much of your work stays with Esri products, and how often have you had to either, that's why you had to go learn a different software, or you're open to different software? How varied is your experiences? Rich, I think you specifically mentioned Esri's got a big role there.
Yeah, Esri has us in a very firm grip. I don't know how else to say that. And the good thing is they kind of are the top tier application. Like, I want to be a hater, but it helps me get the job done. So it does help to have that knowledge of the software. Another role, because I'm with the sanitation customer care division. So a few years back, we switched from Genesis, which is, you call for a bulky item pickup. This is the line that it goes through. And there were no other interns at the time. So I helped set up the new system on Amazon Connect. And so I didn't have any knowledge with setting up call centers, but I took spatial databases, and a lot of those skills are transferable. Shout out Swift. So, I got to, now I'm the go-to person for anything that's Amazon Connect oriented. And that's really nothing that any other GIS specialist in sanitation can do. It's not in my MOU. It's, it's just another skill that I bring to the table, but now I'm the go-to point person for that. So, you're going to encounter other softwares, and it goes into your willingness to learn. At the time, when you start as an intern, sometimes they give you a project that they expect you to take a week on, but we are really well prepared through SSI. So generally, they give me a task Monday, by Tuesday it's done. And I was like, all right, what do I do with the rest of my time? So that's where I took on learning other softwares and things. But yeah, you just have to be open to continuously learning with that.
Yeah, I kind of care. That we call that as other duties as assigned when it comes to our office and government and things. Yes, we are a huge Esri user. I mean, we use their platforms across, especially visualization. Across the Corps of Engineers for a lot of things we do. Different offices are different, I think, and it's based on the skill sets of people that you have. Some offices may have more programmers, developers, whereas others may have more, geographers, analysts. We're not all exactly the same in every district office of things that we do. What I teach in my office and what we talk about quite often is being, technology agnostic or technological diverse. And so that you find the right tool for the right job. So whatever that software, it might not be Esri. It may be, where you don't want to store everything in a hosted feature service online, where at any time and moment, you can lose it or things get overwritten or whatever that might be. Maybe that might be in Oracle, but I've worked in Postgres, I've worked in Oracle, I've worked in SQL Server, all those different things. So, just finding the right tool for the right job, be willing and open to learn those different things, and employ kind of what works best for that particular project or that particular job. You may have restraints and things that you have to use, and you have to certainly consider that. Anytime we do developments, we come up with a requirements list and things of what is going to be required for this to do in this development or this application. And so when we're going in there and talking to the offices, we write all these things down, and a lot of that will drive whatever software and things that we use, whether that's the type of database that we use, the type of whether we're going to use a Esri Enterprise or use ArcGIS Online, or whether we're going to use, there may be, something that might be better for Python or something better for R. It just all kind of depends, and be willing to learn new things. SSI taught me a lot of things. Was one of the reasons I attended the program is because there was things about web GIS and things like that that I didn't really understand early on, and things that were just kind of developing, and now it's pretty much common across the Corps of Engineers that you see stuff like that. But SSI gave me that background to be able to do that. But then you take that background and then expand on it, and keep building on what you've learned in that software. I know SSI was great about, we had Esri, but we also covered other open source stuff. So that was great because it exposes you to that, where some programs might not necessarily do that, where it's all Esri based because that's the only software they have. So I'm appreciative to SSI for that, that we were exposed to a lot of different softwares, and I've been I guess blessed in my job with the Corps of Engineers that we've been that way too, where we've looked into multiple different softwares of things, that not just Esri, but whether that be Global Mapper or QGIS. There's multiple different types of software out there that do different things.
All right, I think Julia has a slightly different, in a design and architecture related.
Sorry, I'm looking at Global Mapper now. I had actually never heard of it.
There you go.
So thank you for that. So I work kind of within architecture. So we actually use CAD software primarily. So we're using Rhino and Grasshopper to drive most of the computational design. Grasshopper is an algorithmic backend for CAD software, if you guys aren't familiar. So it's a graphical user interface. And it's off of C# and Python. So we do use Esri products a fair amount. Well, sorry, let me rephrase. I use Esri products. No one else on my team uses Esri products, and that's why I was brought on is to be able to be that person. There is, to be honest with you, a sentiment that what did my director say the other day? That we are driving a Ferrari to the grocery store. That we have the paying for this insanely complex software that we don't really use that much. Esri is amazing. Their off-the-shelf tools are great. They're really getting up with AI and also getting into generative design more, which is kind of what we do. I think that we're getting more and more into our own customization using Python and Flask to launch our own applications, and also doing more machine learning and things just in notebooks that on our own, because it gives you a little more flexibility to plug and play into other software as needed. I think that Esri kind of keeps things a little bit as a black box, which is not helpful when clients want things to be highly defensible. That said, Esri has great documentation. So, and then also the other issue is just yeah, like when my company got acquired, I had to like transfer everything from like my former server to my new server, and then like everything got corrupted, and like now a client wants something from 3 years ago, they're totally SOL. So like things like that have just like kind of been a mess that I feel like probably wouldn't have happened if it, I don't know, yeah, there's kind of a shift within my own team away from Esri products, and yeah.
This happens, this kind of corruption has happened to friends of mine who are faculty at other departments when they accidentally put all their files in Dropbox and try to connect to them from ArcGIS Pro. ArcGIS Pro gets completely messed up if you move all your data to any cloud, like Google or Dropbox. You have to keep it on a hard drive.
Yeah.
Or
zip everything.
So that is, and that is.
Right, everything.
Yeah, it isn't written anywhere, but I'm sure that's probably what happened.
Yeah.
You think, oh, it's as simple as fixing the path?
No. Yeah, I think, but that said, like on the note of Esri, like it's so good at like just a fundamental baseline GIS knowledge, and also like the model builder gave me the ability to think in terms of like processes and system thinking in a way that really helped like then move into Grasshopper, which is kind of a similar, more robust interface. I'm definitely not recommending that you use Grasshopper unless you're into this like very specific field of modeling and algorithmic design. But it is like really great and robust if you're interested.
I have a question for all the designers. What's your favorite CAD program? Is it Grasshopper, Revit, AutoCAD?
I like SketchUp or Rhino. I hate Revit, but
And
I
you
also
use that
don't.
in the architecture class. You're introduced to both of those. in the
Really? Okay,
architecture,
so
right?
we weren't. I wasn't, but I don't know.
No?
Only AutoCAD.
Only AutoCAD.
AutoCAD,
Not
no, that's
Revit.
archaic. No, I get that.
Not Revit?
A little bit.
A little bit
SketchUp.
real estate class,
For real
though.
estate,
It
yeah.
wasn't ever in our architecture.
Is it
class.
AutoCAD? No
I
one
thought
uses
Revit-
AutoCAD anymore.
I
That's
thought Revit was in there, no?
Not that.
Ryan,
You need to have
Ryan-
Robin here for
Ryan is
AutoCAD.
way better at geometry.
Wait, Rich, what did you say?
You need to have Robin here for the AutoCAD and Autodesk situations.
No, but Robin and I have
Frankie.
talked about this too, and no one uses it. Yeah, Revit is an AutoCAD.
Is there a favorite?
Yes.
I would say in the Corps of Engineers, we've been a heavy Bentley user.
Yeah.
Bentley users for
no.
years.
Wait, what did he say? Heavy what?
What was that, Brian?
I would say within the Corps of Engineers, we've always been a heavy Bentley, but for the first time, like ever, we're now actually using more Autodesk now than ever, within the Corps of Engineers of stuff that within our CAD BIM community of practice. So we see a lot of that on our end.
Industries.
Yeah, and but GeoBIM is a huge industry on like, but for, on the note of Brian, is like, that's a whole subsector that like I get asked about all the time that I'm honestly not that knowledgeable about, but like just being a BIM coordinator and like also understanding the integration between GIS software and BIM software is like, that's a whole cottage industry. Yeah, so I don't know. That
Also,
I can speak to
You
it.
you guys should try to talk to Caltrans, because I actually saw a really great presentation at our CAD BIM meeting back in January from Caltrans that they gave, where they gave basically a full circle of how they were integrating, Autodesk and BIM and GIS and surveying all together. It was really impressive.
All right, we'll look
Yeah,
at it.
As working, I'll just say, working in an architecture firm, like the architects who are like doing floor plans, they're in Revit. But like and now I've worked across 3 different firms that have been of various acquisition phases that all use Revit, but I don't know that that's relevant to like you know what I mean. There's also like GIS inside Revit.
And if you're a student, this is for the master students here. All of the software you can get for free. Any of the, like the CAD, Autodesk, all that as a student, you go through, if you go through the ITS website, I know because I have it and I update it every year.
So I've got one final question here that's kind of a broader company-wide or system-wide, government-wide question for you guys. how, and in your experience, and it's fine if you have not experienced this, or if you are, maybe Brian, you're more doing this now because you're in a supervisor role, but how does your company support traditionally underrepresented populations as they are entering the field? And do you have any advice for someone coming from a traditionally underrepresented population in the various fields that you all are in now?
And this question originally came for an international conference from an international women's geotechnical association.
And you can say, but whatever, again, as applies or as you may have experienced or not experienced yet.
Yeah, I mean, we try to do a really good job of reaching out across the board, into multi-different groups. We stress diversity as much as possible, in every way that we can, from going to multi-different universities. We hold multiple different job fairs. We just had one. A couple different ones recently that I ended up hiring somebody from. That's something that we try to get recruiters into all different kinds of events to support those groups, to support underrepresented groups. And then once they're kind of in the workforce, we stress, decency in the workplace, those kind of things, and programs for people. We support special emphasis programs, things like that, where we can put the spotlight on those things, make sure those people are supported. And as a supervisor, you give people opportunities, every chance that you get, you give people opportunities to sit on teams, to sit on projects, those kind of things, so they can increase their skills, across the board.
Honestly, my company is pretty egregious, so I'm curious about the other people's answers, but I do think what I will say is that as young people that own it, people are really looking to you all to kind of lead that charge.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
on the flip side, what
Yeah.
would you like for the company, or for?
Yeah, so I mean, I think everything comes down to the people you hire. You can have special interest groups and belonging groups, and we have all those things, and that's great. But if your workforce isn't diverse, it really doesn't matter. Okay, so I'm the only woman on my team, and I've been the only woman on my team for 5 years, which is insane. And I think that I've had, I never thought, maybe this was naive, but I was like, there's gender equity, yeah, we all, yeah, and there's not, and
It's because we overrepresent in SSI.
totally, and in academic institutions, right? Women are 60% of the college population now. Yeah, so I didn't really ever I think I was a little naive to having to advocate for those things still, and in the last year, as we're hiring, I've had to be my boss just hired someone on a one-off that was recommended, and I was like, what? No, we cannot just hire another guy when we cannot be a 9-to-1 ratio and not open the application process to a broader audience, and having to be a really strict advocate for that. And also I feel that's a recruiting issue. I'm not a recruiter, that's not my job. And I'm so often met with the architecture's a really male field, and especially computational design, it's kind of fratty, and I was I think that's a sourcing issue. I don't, and I think that is on HR to it's on us to find good recruiters who can go out, and also who can go out and do education and spread the gospel of computational design in diverse fields. Yeah, I would love to hear what you have to say.
How many times has somebody said to us, you don't look like a whatever
geophysicist?
Yeah. What does a geophysicist look like?
Right, exactly. And also,
computational designer, you're well, why not? Yeah.
This is also something that I talk about a lot with my friends in architecture, is there's kind of two camps. There's the camp of people who think that who want to be really buttoned up and be strict with people and very but I'm also I'm a young woman, and I should be allowed to be and be that and in the workforce and still respected. And like, I feel very strict about like, feel like very stern with myself about like staying true to myself and being like, I'm whatever girly, like, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm like extroverted and like that's fine. And like, I think that like, it honestly makes people uncomfortable, but I stick to my guns of like being myself in the workforce. Like, but also some people have different opinions. Like some people think that they want to be like really strict and you know, like stern with their male colleagues, and like that's also like just how you want to approach it. But
Conservative?
I think that's maybe like a better word. And there's obviously like total validity in that side too as well. Personal. Yeah, or perhaps overcompensating by asserting yourself. Like that's also like a valid way to kind of like keep things in balance. For me personally, that would be kind of inauthentic to like myself. But long story short is that I think that like you should be prepared to have to be, unfortunately, for better or for worse, like an advocate way more than you anticipated, because I didn't think I would have to be, and here I am.
Or the only one of.
Right, yeah. But that's something to be selective about when you're like applying to jobs. Like that's something to press on and to say like, do I want to be a part of an organization where the entire team is white men? You know, like, and I think you have every right to ask who's on the team. You have every right to find out about that, and like it's 40, if not more, hours of your week. Like, you know, it's okay to like make sure. I think there feels like there's a power imbalance when you're being hired, and like, okay, if you'll take me, like amazing, but like but it's okay to like find out for yourself, is this what I want for myself, and am I willing to join an organization that doesn't represent me? It's like that's also
I will say with the City of Los Angeles, there is the equal employment opportunity, and you can look that up. It's a whole very long document that talks about everything. But one thing that I experienced was age discrimination. When I was looking to get hired, I had just finished my master's. Like right out of that, I had a lot of experience from USC and from all the research opportunities. In the city, how things work is you submit a paper application, then you're brought in for an in-person interview, normally a panel. They assign you a score, then they open the position, they take like the top 10 from the score and they go down the list. My score, I scored an 88 the first round that I interviewed, which was good, but the guy who was interviewing me, he was like a 60-year-old gentleman, not really, but he nuked my score and straight up during the interview told me like, you're way too young for this. Like, you know, you can't, like, what do you bring to the table? You're too new, didn't know what geodesign was. He didn't have a GIS background, should not have been interviewing in the first place. But that was something that I experienced. And then, you know, later on when interviews opened again, I was interviewed by a woman, and then two other middle-aged diverse people. I got the second highest score in the city. So it's just one of those situations where you might run into it, and you do have to face that situation. But luckily with equal employment opportunity, there are routes that you can take, because I did deserve a second and fair shot at this job.
Yeah, the government like test thing is so. I mean,
that's a whole other conversation. If you're interested.
Yeah, if you want a job in government,
the application process.
The application.
Well, the application process is a long one.
That's why I didn't stay at LADOT, is because I didn't have a master's degree, so I scored really low on the exam. They would have I could have stayed, but I wasn't allowed to, because so there's certainly no nepotism there, that's for sure. But,
yeah, I mean, and I will say that for government jobs, like if you want a job a year from now, you should apply now. Even for County of Los Angeles jobs, I applied for one around senior year of college, and 3 years later, they reached out and they're like, hey, do you want this intern GIS job? And I was like, I have a master's now. No, I don't. Like, you really have to, and it's in those situations where you do have to make the connections and hopefully have someone there that you've been in contact with that can help fast track in personnel and help you overcome those really unnecessary hurdles.
Thank you.
That's a really answer. Well, Richard, you reminded us of a question that we weren't sure if we'd have time for, which is, how do you manage your time in these kind of later parts of your, be it graduate program or undergrad, if you're thinking, well, if I want a job in a year from now, now is the time I have to get, my stuff together.
So,
Any tips?
so this will be more applicable to the undergrads, and I'll go into more of the main answer. I was just talking to my younger cousin who's a freshman in college about this, and I was like, the best way to approach college is I want you to imagine a triangle, and on the inside of the triangle is a circle, and inside of that is academics and research. You should always be focused on those things. The other points of the triangle, you should have something that's social, something that's fun. For me, that was Trojan Knights. You should have something that is service. For me, that was Troy Camp, educational outreach around USC. And then the third point of the triangle I had was something cultural. I was with the USC Latino Alumni Society, had the scholarship that allowed me to really connect with the Latino aspect of my identity. But so I kind of had that triangle visual to get me through all of college, and it allowed me to have a really well-balanced experience and meet a lot of people. Now, going more onto the time management, each semester I basically made a giant Excel sheet that went from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., had 30-minute increments, and I had time blocked my entire life. I had all of my classes there. It got to a point and I was like, oh, this is bad. Like I had my gym time on there to keep me accountable. I even had lunch sections because in college, sometimes you forget to eat and it's important to still take care of yourself. So I had that, I had the social club meetings, but each semester I had a new sheet basically that I printed and put in my dorm room. And that allowed me to just like have a general understanding of here's everything I have going on. Here's where I can have free time. Here's where I can tackle things. It's an extremely visual way to approach it, but it allowed me to have a really good time in college. And also, college isn't just about academics. You do want to have time for those social events. You want to make those network connections. You want to have fun. So that sort of block scheduling allowed me to really have the best college experience possible.
Right. I want to just piggyback on that. I think when I go to conferences, the social events are the most one of the most important things because that's where people you make friends and that's a lot of the real networking. Because people are more comfortable.
Yeah, I feel like that's been like an overarching theme in general, like of today is like to just get to know people, be social, and it will take you so far, even if you're not.
I don't want to talk to an AI chatbot. I want to talk to a coworker.
Yeah, you definitely want to communicate. We often one of my mentors, we often say most of the problems that we see is due to failures to communicate. And I say, or poor communication. I think that's the number one key that I always reiterate with people is, communication is key. So the more you're communicating and getting to know people and building those relationships, I think the better things are going to be as far as like your career goes and things. Like I said, the networking aspect is definitely huge, and or reason why I emphasize people going to the conferences, going to your meetings, where you get to know other people and maybe you might learn something, you might meet somebody new, but those things are huge. As far as time management, he hit the nail on the head. It's like you got to compartmentalize a little bit, block things off, make sure what your priorities are and what's important to you. You can do all those different things, but definitely, just make sure, I've known students that have gone and partied their college away, and then they were sitting back at home or, not getting accomplished what they were set out to accomplish. So you definitely, you got to have set apart time for fun and things like that, but definitely to make sure you sit down and focus. I had a full-time job, when I took on this USC SSI master's degree program. So I was working a full 8-hour day and then coming home in the evenings, and sitting down. Sometimes life got in the way. I had to take a full year off when I got married. But sometimes life things can kind of get in the way of that, but you definitely have to schedule out your time and things around, that, especially if you have jobs and things like that, where you're supporting yourself through school, make sure what's important. I never will forget, in a community college, and I had a part-time job at the time that was keeping me up till about 1 a.m. a bunch of the times, and I kept showing up late to my Chem 1 class. And the professor told me, and I'll always remember this, is like, do you want to do that the rest of your life, or do you want to go on to something different? You know, and that kind of struck a chord with me, is to set my priorities right of what was important, of getting to class on time and making sure I was getting my schoolwork done, or otherwise I'd be working that same job of what I had back when I was a freshman in college.
I think that's a really good point, because we do have quite a few of our GIST students are remote learners and, you know, doing online or, you know, working, and even undergraduate students have a lot. I think you have a lot more now than we did when we were in undergrad, a lot more pulling at your time, be it jobs and other things. So really great advice there in terms of trying to find that balance. So we have a few minutes left. If anybody online has any questions, I think we've addressed you've been popping them in the chat, or if anybody in the room has any questions for the panelists, or if the panelists would like to share any other final words of wisdom with our varying populations. We'll give everybody a minute to kind of think about one final question if you have one.
I actually have a question. I was wondering if you saw any like transformation with the emergence of AI, and if there's any like skills we should be like more focused on because they became more like valuable maybe because of AI. Yeah.
Julia,
Yeah.
maybe Julia or Rick,
Yeah.
is your design and
Yeah, like as far
application.
as like stable diffusion and designing with AI, absolutely has completely changed like how we present material, and that ability has been crazy. Like our work has totally like the presentation material specifically, and also we've been doing a lot of like more research of like integration with oh my god, I can't think of what the package is called. Doesn't matter, comfy UI, and like stable diffusion and Grasshopper and things like that for like rendering. And like as far as like, I think that there is now an expectation that like you do have at least some kind of baseline understanding of how AI works and like an ability to integrate it into your work. That said, there's like now this like like fetishization of AI. Like people have become absolutely obsessed, and like, yeah, like to Rich's point, I don't want to talk to an AI chatbot. Like we're people and like be a person. And I think that like, yeah, you don't want that to become your entire, like some people are gonna be an expert in that, and that's amazing. And I think we should all have some level of literacy, especially in the architecture field for like rendering, but also like now it's so like such that like way more people can, it's kind of democratized coding, at least at the simple level, like at a very baseline level. So what that means is like if everyone can code at a simple level, then like what's your edge, right? So like I think so like yes, but not in the ways that I think that that I personally anticipated, in that I think there's almost like an over reliance on it.
It's kind of lost meaning sometimes in that they're like, this is AI. It's like, that's machine learning. That's spatial data science. It's
Absolutely.
not crazy.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
it's just rebranded.
Yes.
It's about having an understanding of it, and how, like, I use a space-time cube the other day. Like this is a real life example of what I had to do for work. So one council district wanted to find out about where the most roadkill was, which is dead dogs and cats, with an LA sanitation request. So I made a space-time cube over the entire city of LA of animal deaths, but it was really cool. And I found out it was when the Dodgers won, when the Rams won, 4th of July. It was tied with all the fireworks and those dates. So really cool spatial data science project. And then you're like, that's dead dogs. But that's like an actual use of machine learning in work. Another thing someone brought up is with Amazon Connect for the call center system, they were trying to pitch the city, and we already don't have a lot of money. And they're like, AI will tell you how the customer is feeling when they call sanitation. And I was like, no one's calling because they're excited. Everyone's angry. Everyone is always angry when they call us.
You're like, it's a call center. Nobody's going to be happy.
So I was just like, I told my boss straight up, he was kind of excited. And I was like, we don't have the money for this and we don't need this. Just, you have to be realistic about those things. And also, yeah, protect your own work. I'm making maps. We're not having an AI just gather maps, because when I send those over to the city attorney, like, I stand behind my data. I don't stand behind what a computer is just going to throw together. I have a much more innate understanding of the data, of the nuances of my LA data, than just letting something, oh, just pull all the service requests over here. Like, you have to protect yourself as an employee, and being in a union, for me, that's a lot easier. But if you don't have a union job and they're like, oh, we just brought AI on, you're out of luck, sorry. Those are things you actually have to think about when you're looking for employment.
I think that's a really good point. The understanding behind that product, and that, you know, you can stand behind it because you know what went into it. But if you have, you know, if you just say, produce this one thing, you can't necessarily stand behind it or understand how.
You just arrived at the finish line and didn't put in any of the work. And that's not
Which sounds great,
useful.
but it's not. Yeah, you can't actually.
That's fine if you can defend it. If
I was
you
gonna say,
understand,
but
yeah.
you can't defend it
Right.
if you don't know what went into it. Right.
Yeah.
Now, if it's
Use it as a tool.
Right, if
Yeah.
it's a support tool in presentations, in building, because you say, here's what I have, here's what I need to get to, that's a different use of it, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right, if you're like, for rendering, it's a great tool, but then you also need to be able to be like, oh, like, you know, the staircase ends off a cliff, like, maybe I should, you know, like, yeah, being able to like examine
Yeah.
the flaws of it and being like, actually, you know, like, and make edits yourself, and being able to like, yeah, say, hey, yeah, that's it.
And also, I give it credit, don't be shy, say, oh, I got that, you know.
Yeah,
and
totally.
say what you searched on, always do that. The worst thing is when someone shouts out an answer in class and then they don't, you know, we don't know like where it came from.
They're Googling it on their computer while yeah, that's so funny. Yeah, but everyone uses it, like, there's definitely no, like, it's not like shameful, it's just like, yeah,
Yeah, just say, you know, because that, you know, a fast and clever use of AI, you guys, is a skill.
Totally.
Just like a fast and clever use of Google. It really is, and just, it also, I think it has, you know, it has the problem is, the sources.
Yeah.
You know, from when you use generative.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
No, it just
Okay.
reminded me of something that like has always stuck with me, that my like first ever boss said, like an internship I had, which was, you don't need to know everything, only enough to Google it. And I think that was literally like actually some of the best advice I've ever gotten, because it actually like points at like a deeper truth to your point of like being able to like articulate what you're looking for is such a good skill to have. Like it's so useful. Like, yeah, and obviously like most things you can look up, but how you do it and how you go about it is like
How you do that
yeah,
research.
right,
Yeah.
is gonna lead you towards different answers. So anyway, it's a bit of a tangent, but it just reminded me of that.
Yeah, I've only had one class where a student said, I use ChatGPT every day, and this is exactly what I use it for, and she was like my age. She was the only one that would admit it.
Do we have any other questions in the room or online? Y'all are quiet. In the room, anybody else?
So like, when you're going through undergrad at least, how soon should you start thinking about like, I mean, I know you at any point you should start thinking about like where you want to take whatever major you're studying, but how soon should we really start seriously considering those things? Like, what job should I look for after I graduate? Do I want to do a master's, do this thing? Like, when should that start being like the focus? Or
I think that freshman and sophomore year are for kind of figuring out, what am I interested in? And it's okay. Those are kind of like, I changed majors, which is I changed majors without telling my parents. Like, you know, you got to take those risks. It's one of those things where you have the opportunity to make mistakes freshman and sophomore year and find out what you're actually interested in. So like, I think after freshman year of college, I worked for Maruchan, the ramen company, and I was their bilingual college kid. And it was just like, handing out ramen, 15 bucks an hour, cool. Sophomore year, I was doing research, did the Amsterdam program with SSI, and then I had a job on campus with Trojan Family Weekend. Junior year, NASA JPL. After senior year, it was City of LA internship. So that's kind of like a good roadmap for, it started out fun. I was just summer job, keep myself occupied, get some funds. But then I would say after junior year, you're like, okay, I need to narrow the scope of what I'm doing, make it more applicable to what I want to do in the future.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna have a different take. And I think that
have you here.
Traditionally, sorry, I feel like I'm like the Paula Abdul of this like panel. Like I agree. And like that was the same path I had as I had like a, whatever job my freshman year and then increasing levels of seriousness. First of all, I think like just getting any job in general is helpful to like figure out what you want, like, or what you don't want. Like I had one job that I was like, this sucks, but like, okay, great. Now I know I don't want to do that, so like, don't put too much pressure on getting like the perfect job. But also it's so highly dependent on you and how ready you feel and what you want out of it. And like, I wouldn't put too much stress on like, is this timing exactly right? Am I doing the right thing? Like it's so personal. And okay, this may be my hottest take of this whole thing is that like my biggest regret honestly is like I started working like immediately out of college because it was a financial necessity. If I didn't have to do that, like I would have taken time off. I would have gone and traveled the world. Like I would have like figured out what I wanted outside of my career. Like I think I still would have ended up in a pretty similar field. It's like what I'm passionate about, but like honestly my biggest regret is not just like like being a young person and like going and doing like cool stuff, like I think that makes you a more well-rounded person in the long run. So that's not to say like go mess around, but like if you can, I don't know, I think it makes you a little time off
or exploration while in school some way.
Totally. If you're able to, I couldn't recommend it enough. And I always find that people who have gone off the beaten path are the most interesting people to talk to.
Julia and a couple of others from the same cohort, they come once a year and give a talk at 383. You guys, and there's always a graph of their path. It's like, and all three of them totally different.
Yeah, everyone, we've all done something super different, but we all did go work right out of college. And that was great. Like, like no regrets, but like if I could do something different, like I don't think that everything is so linear.
Non-linear.
Not everything is so linear.
It's non-linear.
Yeah.
Non-linear paths, you've heard all of our paths, yeah. Brian, did you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, they both are kind of right about that. Is like I worked all through undergraduate. Of course, I was full time when I was doing the SSI program. But yeah, I mean, one is just to make sure, you get out there and get those experiences and give yourself an opportunity to work or either internship. You may find out you absolutely, like she said, you may absolutely hate something, and that's okay. Now you hate doing that. It's better than once you get out in the workforce and, you've been there 3 or 4 years and you look at them and it's like, I really hate this. Now, there's not saying anything that, there's not saying that you can't start over at that point. I don't feel like anybody's, too old or anything. I know finances don't always allow people to do things like that. If I'm much like her, finances said that I needed to go to work right out of college. So that's what I did. And that's kind of also what was kind of drilled into my head from my parents and things like that. But it's also important what, stress work-life balance and school life balance. That's important because, there's such things as burnout. You can burn yourself out very easily. So make sure you have that, work-life balance, that college life balance. Don't stress yourself out. Definitely trying to feel like you got to figure out exactly what you're going to do when you graduate. Don't try to stress yourself out on that, but definitely to have that work-life balance. Because I can recall my very first supervisor told me, this job's going to be here tomorrow. Don't carry too much of it home with you. So that was something I always took, is to make sure I took time for my family, took time for things of I like to play softball in my off time and stuff like that. So find those extracurricular activities of things that you enjoy doing. And also important is to, you know, make sure you enjoy what you're doing for work. Because you'll work yourself to death otherwise. So make sure it's a career field that you actually enjoy doing and things like that, and find what drives you. You know, one of the first questions I always ask people in interviews is what interests you in GIS or geospatial? What drives you in this field? Whether it's making pretty maps, you know, whether it's, you know, doing programming, what really drives you? Because if you give me, you know, just some run of the mill answer, but you know, you got to have a general interest in what you're doing. So
I think that's really great. Did you have one?
Yeah,
It's
Brian,
1:30.
do I remember correctly that one of the things that heavily influenced what you ended up doing your thesis topic on was a hurricane? Was
yeah, so you know,
that,
yeah, I mean that my work really drove a lot of things. Now, my thesis option ended up we kind of moved it more towards LA and focusing on earthquakes and of course the elderly population of LA and trying to design the UI UX around their accessibility of that apps. Which I'm happy to see Esri running with that. A lot of the things that they're doing now. Krista McPherson, another SSI graduate, is working with their team and doing a lot of accessibility stuff with the Esri products now. But yeah, I mean that I have a passion for helping people with emergency management. I was a senior in high school when Hurricane Katrina hit, and I went immediately to the Gulf Coast and started supporting you know, people, and just seeing the impacts of a disaster like that shaped the rest of my life. And you know, and who knew, you know, years later I would be working for the Corps of Engineers and chief of their geospatial office. But that whole, you know, event kind of shaped the rest of my life. So yeah, and definitely having a desire to help people. So find that desire of what drives you is, you know, my biggest encouragement.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. We'll wrap up. Or you want me to?
Well, I'm just gonna thank everybody then. Yeah, unless there's any last questions, then thank you so much to our panels. I think they deserve a big round of applause. Okay, Laura, for orchestrating all of this. There is a Conferences 101 workshop coming up in November, so GeoDesign, you'll be getting emails from me about that. Anything else we wanna kind of plug in while we have everybody?
GIS Day is coming up next month,
Yes.
and the focus is
GeoAI, the role of I know we were talking about GeoAI, now it's everywhere, but the role of GeoAI in politics and global politics, so kind of a different take on it. So
look
keep an eye out for that, yeah. And SC Mappers will be also having a evening event, a mapping event that they are organizing. So that'll be a more fun, active event that all will be invited to, and yeah.
And I think those of you who did register will get a recording of the event. Brian, if you're still interested in offering your mentoring services, if you want to share email, we'll spread that to anyone else as well. Or if you're interested in finding a mentor, we can see what we can make up. Otherwise, yeah, thank you all for a really wonderful event.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.